Hong Kong is hit by the heaviest rainstorm in 500 years, resulting in heavy flooding and damage across the city. Hello and welcome to a very wet Friday. The city was pummeled by heavy downpours and widespread flooding with a severity not seen in 500 years, according to the government. They also issued the extreme conditions warning for the first time, which is expected to remain in place until at least midnight. This as the black rainstorm warning was in force for more than 16 hours, with much of the city's transport and services having been brought to a standstill. Jackie Lin was at one of the hardest hit districts in Hong Kong.
Feel the power of nature. This churning waterfall is the upper stream of Shatin's Shingmun River. Torrents of water gush down the hill with water splashing high. Devastation inflicted by the floodwaters seen by residents who ignored safety warnings. Among the worst hit districts is Wong Tai Sin, floodwater inundating not just outside the premises, but also swamping the Wong Tai Sin MTR station, as well as the lower ground level at nearby Temple Mall. In the late afternoon, the north wing of Temple Mall is still half submerged, with furniture and debris seen floating and drifting in the flood water, while the lower floors have been cordoned off. As you can see behind me, the upper levels are now open for the public as usual.
I felt sad because I have never seen this rain and I watch it in TV and I want to come here.
Some restaurant staff had to be evacuated. Similar sites of devastation on Lung Cheng Road. Workers toiled hard to remove the debris.
I think the gate was actually damaged by the flooding, and it looked quite serious. Like, I've never seen this stuff, even though I've lived here for already more than 20 years.
I never see it before. It's kind of scary.
While the torrential downpours have abated, mud and silt still coat the sidewalk. And as you can see, cleanup efforts are underway across the community. Over in Kowloon Tong, the MTR station was overwhelmed by flood water. Train services disrupted. Rainwater cascaded down the platform to the rail tracks. The main artery of Waterloo Road near Cornwall Street cordoned off too. With 600 millimeters of rainfall recorded in 10 hours during the storm, that broke the highest measurement of precipitation ever recorded by the Hong Kong Observatory since 1884. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Some of the most serious damage was caused by landslides. The landslip warning remains in effect. As of this evening, authorities have handled 34 landslide cases in the city. In Shau Kei Wan, several large rocks fell onto the road near the hillside of a public housing estate, while several roads caved in around the southern district. Timothy Lee reports.
Under heavy rainfall during the black rainstorm signal in Shau Kei Wan, many huge rocks fell onto Yu Hing Road near Yu Tung Estate. Completely blocking off the road. Cars were damaged. Minibus stop signs too. Mud and silt were everywhere around the ground floor of Yu Ming House. Trees could be seen sliding off hill slopes. A portion of the hill was missing. Some residents said they heard loud bangs throughout last night. This man said it felt like an earthquake and that he thought he was in a disaster film. In Chai Wan, sludge covered several parts of Wan Toi Road. Water reached above ankle-deep level. Leaves, bricks, and miscellaneous items trashed the street. Some cars broke down while trying to traverse the flooded area. Drivers got out and attempted to push their vehicles. Some residents saw the travel plans affected by the heavy showers. This man said he was in a hurry to board a plane to Shenzhen, adding that he was worried he would miss his flight in the afternoon. This driver noted how some car parks in Siu-Sai 1 have been completely flooded. On Friday morning, the police deployed officers to help guide traffic, while fire services arrived at several locations to tow broken-down vehicles. Workers removed objects strewn on the streets, shoveled away dirt blocking the road. At Braemar Hill, some outer walls of residences tumbled and destroyed railings. Lampposts were not exempt from damage. In Deepwater Bay, a sinkhole was created at the junction of Island Road and Repulse Bay Road, trapping a white vehicle. Underground cables were also exposed, with gas company personnel sent to check on the situation. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Water poured into many MTR stations, causing flooding along the Kwun-Tong line. At one point, the underground tunnel was inundated with water reaching up to staff members' necks. Train services between Shek Kip Mei and Choi Hung stations remain suspended. Footage that circulated among the MTR staff union shows water rushing into Won Tai Sin station with levels running up to people's knees. Others captured the sight when the MTR train was more like a boat, with water flowing through the Wong Tai Sin platform. Lawmaker Gary Zhang, who used to work in MTR, said it's not acceptable for staff to wade through water when the underground tunnels are flooded. He said the rail operator should pump away the water and only deploy workers in the tunnels when water is at a safe level. Meanwhile, heavy rain pounded the city center and led to serious flooding that persisted through the night. Many cars broke down and drivers were trapped. Sharon Tang has that story.
The power of the black rainstorm warning. Here in Taiwan, cars stalled. Many vehicle engines broke down and rescuers tried to help. Some residents decided to walk through the floodwater. This man said, "I've never seen floods washing in as quick as this one in my entire life." This passenger was on a vehicle that broke down and decided to wade through the water. He said, "Would you rather be stuck inside the car and wait for water levels to keep rising?" Others weren't so lucky. This woman couldn't stand up and was washed away by the floodwater along the road that turned into a river. Over at a car park on Wanchou Estate in Taiwan, many vehicles were pretty much submerged. Floodwater levels nearly reached the top of the vehicles, and many car owners couldn't save their cars in time. This car owner said, "Drains started to clog and the water started to pour out from them, and I knew something was wrong." He told the facility staff, but the damage could not be prevented. This is what happened to a bus going from Taiwan to Admiralty. Water rushed into the vehicle, and some passengers went to the upper deck. Part of Wong Chuk Hang was covered in floodwater. Similar sights too on Leighton Road. Many cars were almost floating. Serious flooding was also seen just outside Victoria Park, outside Shingmun Tunnel towards the direction of Sha Tin, as well as Wanpo Road in Cheung Kwan O. The observatory said many districts recorded more than 70 millimeters of rainfall since last night. In Kowloon, northeastern New Territories and Hong Kong Island, 200 millimeters of rainfall were recorded respectively. The observatory recorded 158.1 millimeters of rainfall in 1 hour between 11 p.m. and midnight last night, the highest level ever seen in the city since 1884. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Ukraine's Air Force said it destroyed 16 drones heading toward the city of Odessa in the early hours of Friday. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was visiting Ukraine. He said the Ukraine is making advances in its counteroffensive against Russian aggression. This report from NBC News.
As Ukrainian forces grind out their counteroffensive against entrenched Russian troops, Secretary of State Antony Blinken insists Ukraine is finally making advances.
I think we're seeing very tangible progress over the last couple of weeks on the front lines, in the east and in the south. It's hard.
So far, in the last 3 months, progress has been very, very slow. The recent offensive, the gains have been little villages, a little area here. You think we're starting to see more progress?
It's step by step. We're with them. We'll remain with them. And not just us. Again, many other countries around the world.
Will remain with them. But opinion polls suggest that Americans might not be in this for the long haul. So are you making false promises, saying, yes, we're with you, the American people are with you for the long haul, when they might not be?
So first, I believe part of my responsibility, part of my job, and this is true for the president and many others in the administration, is of course to talk to our own people, to continuously try to make clear what's at stake if we allow this aggression by Russia to go uncontested. If we allow it to go forward with impunity, then you open a Pandora's box, and it's a recipe for conflict around the world. Would-be aggressors say, hey, the Russians can do it, I can do it. That's not a world that Americans want to live in.
Blinken's visit came amid more deadly Russian strikes. At least 17 Ukrainians were killed Wednesday in this market. And now there are fears Russia, which, like Ukraine, is running low on weapons and ammunition, could get more from a new source.
All indications are that President Putin and Kim Jong-un are going to meet next week. Do you know when?
Don't know when, but we've seen that, and I think that speaks volumes. It speaks volumes about the desperation that Russia has if it's going around the world trying to find support and weapons from North Korea.
Desperate, but it could work. Do you think it could have an impact, tip the balance?
We've been very concerned about the fact that Russia has already been getting weaponry, particularly drones, from Iran. We're certainly concerned at the prospect of it getting more from North Korea. So we will look at every possible means we have to prevent that, to disrupt that, working with other countries.
In Japan, about 150 residents from prefectures such as Fukushima and Miyagi went to court on Friday in an attempt to halt the release of treated radioactive water from the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant. It's the first lawsuit of its kind. The lawsuit is filed with a Fukushima district court against the central government and plant operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company. The plaintiff said the water discharge, which started on August 24th, threatens citizens' right to live safely and hinders local fishermen's businesses. They're also seeking nullification of nuclear regulators' approval of facilities installed for the discharge and a ban on the release. Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in Japan denied media reports claiming that China had refused to join the International Atomic Energy Agency in establishing an international monitoring mechanism for the discharge. Still ahead, world leaders begin to arrive in India for the G20 summit. Joe Biden's son Hunter in further legal trouble. UK and countrywide hunt for escaped prisoner accused of terrorism. Welcome back. India will host the annual G20 summit over the weekend. Many world leaders are attending, but there are some notable absentees. David Garrett reports.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak arrives in India for the G20 summit, but much of the meeting could be overshadowed by who is not there. President Xi Jinping will not attend. Premier Li Qiang represents China. US President Joe Biden said he was disappointed that he and Xi will not speak face-to-face amid strained tensions between the states. Biden is already on his way. US officials say he may announce a big money deal with Saudi Arabia and India. There are plans to link Middle Eastern countries by rail and build a connecting port to India, which the US hopes could reconfigure trade routes. It is seen as a possible challenge to China's Belt and Road Initiative. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who's already in India, says it's not all about competition with China.
These are important initiatives, doing what we can, and it's not just a question of responding to China. It's a question of addressing two long-standing global challenges, reducing poverty, addressing global public goods issues.
Vladimir Putin is another world leader who is conspicuous by his absence as his war in Ukraine continues. At the last G20 in Indonesia, a joint statement said most members strongly condemn the war. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he doesn't want the war to overshadow the event, but it is the topic of conversation before it starts.
Our common goal should be to do everything to isolate Russia and to make very clear that Russia is violating the UN Charter and the fundamental principles for multilateralism and for international rules-based order.
It is natural that our aim is to amplify the voice of the global South.
Earlier this year, Modi hosted a virtual summit of developing countries. The Prime Minister wants India to be the bridge between the richest nations and those in need. G20 countries account for 85% of the world's economic output and contain 2/3 of the world's population.
From a geopolitical perspective, there is a competition between China and India for the leadership of the global South. They bring on board a very important section of humanity which is trying to tell the global North and the Western countries that, hey, our concerns need to be taken care of. And for many of these countries, Ukraine war is not the issue.
More global powers arrive. The summit begins on Saturday. David Garrett, TVB News.
In the U.S., there has been a new development concerning the legal trouble of President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Federal prosecutors plan to seek a grand jury indictment of Hunter Biden before the end of the month. Hunter Biden is under investigation for his business dealings, and he was also accused of gun possession. NBC has more.
Tonight, as President Biden heads overseas, his son's legal problems are growing. Though many Republicans say they're not satisfied that Special Counsel David Weiss announced he'll seek to indict Hunter Biden by the end of the month.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, it's on the gun charge in Delaware, it looks like, so, big deal.
The GOP has slammed Weiss for negotiating what they call a sweetheart plea deal that would have allowed the president's son to avoid prison time. That deal fell apart under a judge's scrutiny.
The Biden administration wants to give Hunter Biden a slap on the wrist and have him be the scapegoat. And the objective of the Biden Department of Justice is to protect Joe Biden.
But Hunter Biden's attorney firing back at the possibility of an indictment.
What changed? Not the facts, not the law, but we have seen over the last 6 weeks, the politics have certainly influenced the outcome.
Meanwhile, Republicans on Capitol Hill today deposing an FBI agent involved in the original investigation. Many House Republicans arguing Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings are tied to his father, pointing to testimony from Hunter's business partner that the president joined 20 calls with their foreign business associates over a 10-year period.
We're going to follow the facts, the evidence, and if it warrants going to an impeachment inquiry, we're going to do that.
But some Republicans argue the evidence against the president is not there.
But to be clear, sir, at this point, you don't think that evidence has been presented. You're still waiting to see that evidence.
I do not think that evidence has been presented, and I don't think there's a need to have an impeachment inquiry.
And the president has consistently said he played no role in his son's business work. Meanwhile, here on Capitol Hill, House Republicans still holding out the option to call the special counsel to testify.
In Britain, a major manhunt is underway to track down an escaped prisoner who slipped out of London's Wandsworth prison while working in the prison kitchen. Tracy Furness has more.
Britain's Metropolitan Police said searches that took place in London's Richmond Park were connected to the hunt for former army soldier Daniel Abed Khalif. London's LBC Radio said police helicopters had been seen circling the park in West London early Friday. 21-year-old Khalif is believed to have escaped from London's Wandsworth prison Wednesday, slipping out of the prison's kitchen where he worked by strapping himself to the bottom of a delivery van. A major manhunt to track him down has prompted extra security checks at ports and airports, as well as woods and grassland about 8 kilometres from the prison. Police say there has been no sightings of Khalif since his escape.
We keep an open mind about where Daniel Khalif might be. We are still focusing our efforts here in London.
We have support from colleagues all around the country helping us to try and find him.
Khalif, who was discharged from the army in May, is accused of eliciting or trying to elicit information useful to someone preparing an act of terrorism. This while he was based at an army barracks in central England in 2021. He also instigated a bomb hoax by placing 3 canisters with wires on a desk. Khalif denies the allegations and his trial is set for November. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
That's the news on this very wet Friday. Stay safe and stay dry. Bye for now.